So here I am on my way to the Star Wars and the Power of Costume exhibit. Here's the Hall of Justice, and look, there's R2 and C-3PO welcoming me. Now, it's funny that they have to put this sign up for the fucking cosplayers. Why would you cosplay to go look at costumes? I don't get that, but it's a nice precautionary measure. Here I am walking into the place. I am Andre the Giant, and here I go down the escalator. I thought this was a really cool sign. I'm not even an Episode 1 fan, but I just love that actual artwork. So here we are on the actual thing. The beginning's a little choppy because there are a lot of people down there. So if it looks like I'm shaky, this whole video is not shaky and rough. I also am not going to show this video for copyright reasons. Alright, so here we are on the actual ramp up to the exhibit. There's some quotes from George Lucas. For the first Star Wars film, I wanted costumes to be simple and timeless. Costumes modeled to the archetypes the audience would understand and be familiar with. And then this is about the prequel, so clearly he has lost all fucking sense. Thank you, George Lucas. I think it's that other people really helped design this shit, and in this one it was more George Lucas's hand. Anyway, this is the actual, I guess, copyright thing, whatever, Star Wars and the Power of Costume. Here's another quote by a man named Ian McCraig, who became my second favorite Star Wars artist of all time after this exhibit, and you'll see why within this video. So, this says, Star Wars and the Power of Costume. With Star Wars filmmaker George Lucas introduced a fantastical galaxy inhabited by a diverse universe of individuals. Their costumes, inspired by imagination, an eclectic mix of cultural, historical, and mythical sources, shape the identities, blah, blah, blah. You can go back and pause that and read it if you need to. I have that set up for all the text chunks. You can just pause it and read it. So this was a list, an area that had images from the prequels and their inspirations. Here's some designs for Wookiee warriors from Episode 3. They're pretty cool looking. Now, these weren't actual illustrations from the movie per se. They were like copies of them. Here's a picture of Stuart Freeborn putting the Chewbacca mask on Peter Mayhew, I'm assuming. There's a picture of Kenny R2-D2 as a Kenny Baker as an Ewok. That was the guy from Episode 3. Here's the design for the guy from Episode 3. These were just printed on like acrylic or something. More Padme designs, I'm guessing. By the way, this first chunk of video is going to be very dedicated to Padme. And there's evil Anakin Skywalker. Notice the glove, just like Luke. You can pause that to read it. That comes from Doug Chiang, the designer of Episodes 1 and 2. I own one of his books. They're very good. There's Watto. A nice design from Watto, the Jewish guy. That's Art Deco. I actually have a book with that on the cover. And here's Padme. Like always with Star Wars, they just kind of steal other shit and repurpose it. I guess that's what a good artist does. He steals, he repurposes. I can't really criticize. I've done it before, too. Obi-Wan Kenobi. A name I haven't heard in a long time. Classic Alec Guinness. More inspiration for Star Wars robes. Classic medieval paintings. I think that's Queen Elizabeth. I don't know, it looks like Tilda Swinton. I need to re-up my history lessons. So, this is a warrior based on an African warrior tribe. Cool, I guess. I'm not the biggest prequels fan, so this kind of stuff doesn't interest me, because these characters don't do much. More Queen Amidala. There's the iconic outfit. You'll get to see the real thing soon. It's based on some Chinese or Tibetan costumes. Cool. Ancient Japanese artwork. And there's a very famous photo from the film, which we're not going to stay on. And there's Doug Chiang himself with a very bored woman. She knows what the prequels are going to be like. So, some inspiration for Darth Vader. There's an early sketch of Darth Vader's helmet. It's really funny how similar the final one looks. Also, Nazis. There's some Nazis. There's Hitler. That's what literal Hitler looks like. And that's what the Empire looks like. So, there is inspiration from the Nazis with the Empire. There's a scout trooper being dressed. I love these kind of pictures to see behind the scenes from the old ones. There's a Legion of TIE Fighter pilots, I'm guessing from Return of the Jedi. And coming up in a moment are the rough designs for the characters. There's a TIE Fighter pilot that looks like the Death Star gunner. Okay, so Imperial ground crew. And you can tell these are kind of rough. These are probably drawn by John Mallow. He was a production designer. early on. Okay, no, not a great artist. It's like it was done in crayon. There's the Imperial pilot and the Imperial laser gun crew. Yep, I knew it from the helmet designs. It's really funny to see how much was there that early on. There's George Lucas, the man himself. Thanks, George, I guess. It looks like Captain Panaka's costume, or the pre-version of it. Zam Wessel, you'll see that real suit soon. And some more feudal Japanese-style artwork. This was a very, very large illustration of a Jedi Knight. This thing was almost the size of me, and I'm over 6.5 feet tall, so awesome. Very well designed. Here we go, another large illustration of Padme, or Queen Amidala, whatever you want to call it. Pause this to read it. This comes from Ralph McQuarrie, the most important Star Wars artist that ever lived. He designed everything you can think of. Yes, some of the things were more refined by Joe Johnston, but see, look at this. Is a Ralph McQuarrie concept painting for The Empire Strikes Back. Looks just like the movie. Guy did great work. There he is right there. He actually painted Cloud City's matte painting, so that's awesome. Here's a photo of Darth Vader I had never seen before with the lightsaber and stuff, but it's shown multiple times in this exhibit. Here's the famous painting of C-3PO that really connected with Anthony Daniels, and that's how he got the role, according to him. There's a really early design of R2-D2, so that's cool. And there's the very, very famous photo of R2 and C-3PO. It's been used on countless promotional images. It's the first characters from the film to have a speaking role, as C-3PO. And there's a very cool early production painting of Vader fighting Luke. Jedi versus Sith. This is another text block. It just basically says that the simplistic nature of the Jedi is meant to represent good, and the flashiness of the Sith is meant to be evil. So I guess you could use that as saying that, you know, all celebrities who are flashy and shit are evil. I don't know, maybe George Lucas wasn't going too far into that. Derek Thompson from Revenge of the Sith. There are some illustrations. It's just really cool to see how these things play out. I'm an artist. I really respect these, especially this one right here. This action scene coming up about how a Jedi fights. You know, I read a lot of comics, and the artists are very good at portraying action, but this guy, obviously, is head and shoulders above them. It's a really neat illustration. And by the way, all the illustrations I have photos of, they're going to be over on the Facebook page, World Class Bullshitters. So join that, check out that gallery. You're going to get a really good view of all those up close, because there was no flash photography allowed, so I had to deal with what I could do in the darkness. Young Anakin Skywalker from the end of Episode 1. Fuck you, Jake Lloyd. Sorry what happened to you, but you suck. There's the actual suit. I gotta say, for as much as I hate the prequels, it was really cool to see this because it was like being there. The design work was great. The craftsmanship was impeccable. George Lucas really knew how to surround himself by great craftsmen. Now here is one of the coolest ones I saw all day. Luke Skywalker's Jedi Knight outfit from the opening of Return of the Jedi. It is missing, I think... No, it is not. It's not missing the tunic. The tunic's right there. I had this toy as a kid, but mine had a black cloak because I was from the 90s, and not the original brown. This says that Luke Skywalker's Jedi robe was from Return of the Jedi, and it was a wool cloak with raw silk kimono. And I find it funny that Luke, or Mark Hamill, I should say, picked up on the similarities between this outfit and Darth Vader's costume. So that's cool. I'm glad he was paying attention. Here's Watto's Chance Cubes. The best you can get with this low light situation. Not really important, because most of that shit was CGI. Let's look though. Okay, now, they had these iPads around the exhibit. This is the only one in the video that you're going to see. I went through and checked out all the stuff. It was pretty cool. A lot of it was just from like illustrations that you've seen before with a little bit of knowledge, talking about the history of the Force. There's an early illustration of Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is cool. I do like to see that stuff and then look at how it actually came about. This was interesting because I always thought the Jedi robes were made of burlap for the costume's sake, but they're actually made of raw silk, so they're really comfortable. So, for as crappy as it was for the actors to act in nothing, at least they were comfortable. I couldn't imagine being, I don't know, a Tusken Raider in the original film wearing shit, a fucking plexiglass mask. There's that famous illustration again. That was, in 1999, that was on everything. it was cool. I mean, to me, that is the best part of Episode 1. This was really interesting about who designed the lightsaber. I took out all the audio from this clip because, like I said, I really don't want to get a copyright strike. But when I hit the play button, I'll describe to you what it was saying. It essentially told how the lightsaber came to be. So there's Luke's and Darth Vader's. So what this audio clip was saying was that George Lucas had an idea for a lightsaber, and the designer, I can't see his name, went out to find it. And what he did is he went to an old camera shop, and he got flash tubes or bulbs from, I think it was an old Panaflex camera. And he said he got excited when he found them because they essentially look just like that. You should Google what the original lightsaber prop looked like, and you'll see that it's that, and then they just glued some black shit on there, and that's pretty much how you have the lightsabers come to be. Pretty simple, but very iconic. I love this design. I think Luke's blue lightsaber is my favorite lightsaber in the entire saga. Yes, it's Anakin's, and no, it never passed on to anyone else, if you ask me. Vader's, same handle design, really cool. It's just funny how the coolest things in Star Wars come from the most basic shit. It just goes to show you that Star Wars truly is just a borrowed universe. It's bits of this, bits of that, with enough new shine to make it Star Wars, and enough to not to get sued. So, that's pretty much how the lightsabers came to be. And let's move on to the next part of the exhibit in just one moment. More lightsaber discussions, boring stuff from Attack of the Clones. There's the badass motherfucker himself, first time but not the last time. So we know he has a purple lightsaber, and no, it's not because it's good and evil mixed and all that other shit like you may have read on the internet. There he is, and there he is with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And that was really the highlight of that page. Here are some cool illustrations of Darth Maul. It's cool to see how he looked early on. A lot of these characters, their designs hit early on, so it just goes to show you the power of good art. Here's some earlier designs of Darth Maul, more of the lightsaber duel, nice production stills, Ian McCraig artwork. You'll see the original ones. That was cool. I had never seen that picture of Palpatine before, and there's that picture of Vader I said I had never seen before. And here's an awesome illustration from Ralph McQuarrie. We'll see the original one later on. So this is more about the lightsabers. I didn't really need to hear what they sounded like because I'm a Star Wars fan like you, and I know how lightsabers sound. I can tell you where it comes from in what movie. More Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff. More lightsaber duels. There's one of my favorite pictures of Luke Skywalker. That was on a book I had as a child. I had the green lightsaber toy that was on the back of the box. Speaking of lightsabers, here's Palpatine's from Revenge of the Sith. In my opinion, he didn't need one. Here's the Emperor's robes from Return of the Jedi. I was amazed for 34 years old how good they still looked. It was really cool for me to see the shit from the old movies because I've grown up with that, and it's mythical at this point. But to see it in the real world is very cool to me. It kind of draws me in. Here's a Luminara and Dolly, and what you do when you press these buttons is the lightsaber will turn on. So as I look at this badass motherfucker, nothing happens. But when I press it and hold it, there it goes. This was probably one of the coolest setups in the entire display. They had, 4 Jedi fighting Darth Maul. There's Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, Luminara Unduli, and Mace Windu. Now, there's the Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber from Episode 1. I loved this as a kid. I used to think this was the coolest lightsaber that summer. I had the toy. I just would go like, walk around my house with it lit up. It was neat. I love the color blue. And I liked the big red button on it. There was something about that lightsaber that really appealed to me. There's Darth Maul. There's clips from the film. This was cool. This was like a platform built just for this display. This would be something I'd like to own. I think it'd be really cool to display everyday shit on a platform like this. Here's the Darth Maul lightsaber. This thing was crazy popular when the film came out. I had the toy. One thing I noticed about the real lightsaber hilts as opposed to the ones from the toys, the real ones are very thin because they're just, a piece of metal or plastic or rubber. But the toys had to have lights and sounds built in, so I'm used to these really fat lightsaber handles. Like I said earlier, here's Ian McCraig. He is my new hero. Here's an early production design for Darth Maul. That is really creepy. He looks like a evil child. I don't think that's appropriate for Star Wars. That's a little too much. Here's more of Darth Maul. This reminds me of Dracula from that 1990s Bram Stoker's Dracula film, and a clown mixed. But it's cool. Great craftsmanship. Here's the first of many Padme costumes. Be prepared, you're going to see a lot of Padme. If you're bored, watch the lightsaber duel in the picture. So this is Queen Amidala, the Shiera gown from Episode 1. There's George Lucas and her. This is about the royalty. You can pause it here and read the entire text block. It just talks about John Mallow and Princess Leia, who we're about to see in a few moments. Maybe you don't have to pause this one. Here we go. Princess Leia. My favorite female character in Star Wars, or any media for that sake. Princess Leia is a bad chick. Now, this is not the original costume. This is a recreation for The Empire Strikes Back from the scene where her and Luke are on the medical frigate at the end. This basically says it was a lot thicker than the original one, and Princess Leia talks about how she had to wear white for purity. And then they had one outfit. You can pause that to read it. There's our girl Carrie Fisher. Looked like a lot of fun. Here's some concept art for Princess Leia's costume. Like I always say, it's funny to see how early they get the designs down. And now here's something I didn't realize. Princess Leia had a watch. Now they're showing it from A New Hope, but the text says 1979. So I'm guessing that's the watch she wore in The Empire Strikes Back. More Padme shit, or Queen Amidala, whatever. Same woman. These are beautiful. Oh, no, excuse me, it's Queen Apollonia. Whatever. A queen. These are all beautifully made. I can't knock the craftsmanship. When you see these things in person, they are very stunning. It's like being in the movie. But there's just so much. It's overindulgent. Like in the film itself, there's just so much. I don't know of anyone that loves this. When I talk to people about even the prequels, they're not going on about how much they love Padme's suits. They're just like, hey, she's there. This was the handmaiden outfit, just like Natalie Portman and Keira Knightley wore. What do we got here? More handmaiden clothes. I think more time was spent on the handmaiden stuff than the actual storyline for Episode 1. But maybe that's conjecture. You can tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. Here are some designs for the actual costumes of Amidala. That is very cool. These were the materials used to make the costumes, and basically it says that these were pieces of clothing or textiles used to make clothing back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, but they used them for a space setting. But then again, Star Wars does take place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So they used a lot of vintage stuff to design Amidala's clothing. Here is some more background of the designs for her costuming. It's nice. More designs themselves. All Ian McCraig artwork. Great guy. Headdress. And like I said, these are cool to see in person. Every time I see these, though, I just think of the man-hours put in to design this. Queen Jamila from Attack of the Clones. She probably has an action figure. Oh, there's good stuff from the prequels. Oh, wait, I mean the original trilogy. There's the gold bikini, but we're not going to go there yet. More royal garb. It was kind of rough, this part of the show, because I was so bored. Hey, there's a sand person, but we're not going to see him yet. Here's one of the famous Queen Amidala costumes from the Senate, where she's talking about Senate shit. Really not interesting. Here we go. Good stuff. Outlaws and Outsiders. If you can read that, pause it and go ahead. It's almost time for the... Nope. Time for the Tusken Raiders. So we have the female Tusken Raider from Attack of the Clones in 2002. Cool design. I like it. Nothing special, never bought the toy. But this is an original Tusken Raider or Sand Person costume from the original film in 77. Gaffy stick included. It's really cool to see something this old in person. You can tell it's aged, but I love it. is amazing. That was the second thing that really excited me. Here's the history of Princess Leia's slave bikini. You can pause that and read it. Again, I apologize for the low light setting, but no flash photography was allowed in the exhibit. We have some gypsy costumes, some more inspiration for Leia, and here we go with the actual gold bikini. The first thing I noticed about this is Princess Leia was a tiny, tiny woman. It's neat to see, though. I know you get a lot of people at comic conventions dressed up like that, but they're just, cosplayers. This is the real thing. So it's nice to see it was made of resin and metal and all that shit. Apparently Princess Leia's cooch was hanging out, and Boba Fett got to see it when filming Return of the Jedi, so there you go. Speaking of Return of the Jedi, here's Princess Leia's bounty hunter costume, the Boosh disguise. When I was a kid, I never really knew that it was called that. Even though the toy box said it, I just called it Princess Leia as a bounty hunter, but it was a cool toy. Speaking of bounty hunters, there's Boba Fett, and we're going to go see him in just a moment. There's a little screen. I'm going to cut this out because, like I said, copyright reasons. Here's Zam Wessel, and now we're going to go over to Boba Fett. So, this was Boba Fett from Return of the Jedi. It was very exciting. If you don't know who Boba Fett is, then you're probably not into Star Wars, and you're probably not watching this video. So, why are you here? Anyway, Boba Fett is from Return of the Jedi. He's very cool looking in person. The colors are so much better in person than in the film. There's boots, his knee pads, all that shit. Here's another side to him. There's his jetpack. And there's Jango Fett. I'm not the biggest Jango Fett fan, but I think design-wise, he's awesome. I love the color blue. And it's basically Boba Fett with a different color scheme. So that was neat. There's a picture of all the bounty hunters painted by Ralph McQuarrie. Gotta show respect to the man. Now, this was basically saying how Chewbacca came to be, based on George Lucas's Alaskan Malamute. Here is a cooling costume that Peter Mayhew wore for Revenge of the Sith. Well, just any Wookiee costume. Now, my local news channel made a mistake and said this was made for the original film. So it shows you that you shouldn't believe everything you read on the news. There's Chewbacca being fixed up in the original film, and there's Stuart Freeborn with the Chewbacca mask and Peter Mayhew again. Here's a very famous illustration of Chewbacca. Just goes to show you that Chewbacca wasn't set up perfectly the first time around. Very ugly. Speaking of ugly, this design looks like a midget in a gorilla suit. More Chewbacca designs drawn by John Mallow. Not really a great artist. I mean, this is grade school level shit for me, but whatever. And now, let's go look at the real thing. So this is Chewbacca from 1977's A New Hope, or it was known back then as Star Wars. They actually had the fur that the suit was made of that I'm touching. It's very coarse. It's like a wig. Chewbacca growled, and here's Chewbacca. This was my favorite part of the exhibit because it felt like Chewbacca was really there. Han Solo, my favorite character. There's his costume from Return of the Jedi. I do wish it was his suit from A New Hope, but whatever. I really can't complain too much. It's still a Han Solo costume. I think the boots are wrong, but maybe I'm wrong. There it is from the back. There's Chewbacca, very thin. More Han Solo stuff, nothing too interesting. Learning about the history. Here are the droids. Here's an illustration from Star Wars. And here's a little text blurb about the droids. So, you can check that out right there. Here's a disassembled or deconstructed C-3PO costume. There's the body glove Anthony Daniels wore. You can pause it to read those blurbs. That's in some about WD-40. There's the shoes he would wear. Just to show you how small he is, that was my hand in comparison. Anthony Daniels' chest was probably the size of my hand. It's kind of sobering to realize all these people are so tiny, but whatever. I guess they're larger than life on screen. When you see them and they're like only to your shoulder, it's kind of like, oh, nothing's real. There's the mask. If you look closely, which you might not even be able to tell in this video, but there's a lot of... I don't know, the suits are very uneven when you look at them up close. You can tell that they're handmade. They're not perfect. I'm sure the ones from the prequels were more symmetrical, but these are classic. I'm not knocking them. Here are some early design illustrations for C-3PO. That looks like Metropolis right there, the robot from Metropolis. That looks like a crash test dummy. Early stuff. These will be over in the Facebook group. And here is C-3PO from The Empire Strikes Back. I've seen C-3PO from Return of the Jedi in person at the Smithsonian. That was cool. And here's R2-D2. Don't worry about that other orange soccer ball. R2-D2 is all you see. Speaking of R2-D2, here's some interior stuff from R2-D2. There's the thing it plugs into for the Imperial network. All that stuff. It was really cool to see it. It's just a little piece of metal, but it's really neat. Here's a design schematic of how Kenny Baker fit into the suit of R2-D2. That's really neat. And here's some more concept illustrations. This is from 1975. Rough Quarry. By the way, these were all the original ones these were the hand-drawn ones on paper. These were not reproductions. That's something I really enjoyed. Now, we're getting into a section on creatures. There weren't a lot of these, because a lot of the suits would deteriorate, because they're made of, foam latex and stuff like that. So these are just going to be some illustrations of their Squid Head. He had a toy. Never owned it, but saw it. Over here, we got another frog-like man. Cool. More John Mallow stuff. Now, this was cool. I had to stop and look at this because I went through each thing and took a photo. These were the Cantina people. Here we go, some more illustrations, some of the early Jabba the Hutt work. And here's an Ewok. Normally I say fuck Ewoks, but it was pretty cool to see an Ewok in this Stormtrooper helmet. This was the first Stormtrooper helmet I've ever seen from a film in person. And there's the Ewok. And that's what it looks like without the CGI eyes. Speaking of Stormtroopers, here's a Stormtrooper from Return of the Jedi. Very cool to see in person. Let's take a closer look at it. I never realized those were little speakers on the front of its helmet. I just thought they were design choices. And in the background there's Luke Skywalker, and nothing else. Alright, so we continue to go down more. And let's go look at some more Imperial stuff. So we have a Death Star gunner helmet, an Imperial officer's helmet from the Death Star. Those are pretty cool. A blank mannequin, and here we go. Here's an Imperial officer costume. Presumably the Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. Very neat. And here's a TIE Fighter pilot. And it's a very, very perfect design. I love the designs. And there's a Scout Trooper helmet. Really small in person. Kind of creepy. And here's some of the stuff the Imperial officers would wear. Little Griblies or whatever they were called. There's some rank badges and some design elements on paper, and more Nazis to show you that the Empire was based on Nazis, just like Hydra. Here's some of the stuff from the good guys' side. The Griblies. These are just Y-Wing pilot vests. Captain Typho, he was cool, kinda. Luke Skywalker, let's see the man himself. After we look at this, a bunch of Y-Wing pilot helmets. There's Luke. His X-Wing gear from Return of the Jedi, very cool. Different helmet. I wish I would have had the New Hope helmet, but a lot of that stuff was lost. Very few things from the New Hope showed up. There's a whole bunch of Y-Wing helmets. That's the one thing I don't really like that much from the New Hope. Return of the Jedi. The blue Royal Senate Guards. Cool costume. Doesn't serve much of a purpose in the film. This next section is the Galactic Senate, so if you need to take a nap, please do, because I may not even narrate over it. I may need to snooze. There's Padme in her mesh helmet outfit. Bail Organa, the blue guy, and Mon Mothma. And somebody. So let's take a closer look at these. Again, the craftsmanship is impeccable. Not knocking the artist behind it. Just not a fan. It's so boring and stale for Star Wars. Star Wars was always going and moving, and this... No, not so much. So let's look at Senator Amidala's outfit closely. Yep, there it is. Bail Organa. I couldn't read his name. He's just the fat blue guy. Very cool looking. Looks like a samurai helmet himself, like Darth Vader's. This is Mon Mothma from Revenge of the Sith. And looks a lot like Mon Mothma from Return of the Jedi. There we go, there's the actress. And this is Sly Moore. Cool. Here we go, Palpatine's section. So, here's a bunch of Palpatine outfits, all the way till he becomes evil Palpatine. Or Darth Sidious, if you will. The no costume. Very great craftsmanship. These were neat to see in person. The detail, I just wanted to go out and touch it because the textures on it looked so inviting. Overall, kind of boring though to dress like this. It's flashy, but kind of lame. More Padme stuff. So, I hope you're not bored of Natalie Portman's little ass. A nice Ian McCraig illustration. Beautiful craftsmanship. You can pause it to check it out. This is a really, really well-designed thing. There's the headpieces to make the hair shell. There's the white arena costume that you like. You'll see more of that later. This is from episode 2. There's Padme's dress. I don't know what she's doing there. Here she is when she was disguised as a pilot. Cool. I mean, I guess people wanted to kill her that bad, but whatever. I apologize for using that phrase. More Padme from the front. Padme from the front or the back's cool, if you ask me. That dress, I just had to check it out. It was very cool to see how the drapery flowed to the ground. Probably one of the simpler outfits she wore, but still very effective. And here's probably her most famous outfit of all the films, the white arena costume with the rip and the armbands. More illustrations of Padme. More illustrations of Padme. More illustrations of Padme. Something Padme wore that's not an illustration, so that's a nice surprise and change of pace. The inspiration for the hair buns and all this other shit. This should have been with the Princess Leia section, because you know, this is just based on Princess Leia's look, but whatever. Hey, guys, guess what? Some illustrations of Padme. Hope you love them, because you got another hour of them. More. Okay, here's some costumes from, I believe, Revenge of the Sith. I'm going to go through these quicker. She's pregnant. There we go. Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Special appearance by Jabba the Hutt. Pregnancy outfit. More illustrations of Padme. That one's pretty cool, though. I like that they got the likeness of Natalie Portman down. Kind of impish. But again, Natalie Portman has that fairy-like quality to her face. More Natalie Portman. Hey, look, more Natalie Portman. But there's Anakin from the end of episode 2. In their wedding costumes. Probably the most fateful wedding in history. Alright, here comes the main event, Darth Vader. There's no way that this could be disappointing. Could it? So here are some early illustrations of Darth Vader. This is Ralph McQuarrie from 1975. These are always neat to see because they're just so basic, but they're so cool. Early designs, Vader did have a breathing apparatus. From what I've heard, he was going to be, to operate in space, but they just kept it. Very, very rough Vader. That's cool, there we go. But here's the actual costume. The only problem is, it's the costume from Revenge of the Sith. So it's kind of dopey looking. And here's an interior painting of Darth Vader's helmet. Pretty cool. And that was all they had for Darth Vader. Now, the oldest character in Star Wars, Yoda. This was cool to see. Now, if you look closely, you'll see that Yoda wears a purse. So, I guess men can wear purses. Or Jedi Knights, at least. So there's the Yoda puppet, and that was the end of the exhibit, as here I'm leaving. So, that was it. Or was it? So Cincinnati is home, or was home, to Kenner Toys, where all the Star Wars toys were designed. And we have this really awesome wall mural, with the exception of the George Clooney Batman. They could have done any other Batman, but whatever. But check out Boba Fett in Boba Fett in X-Wing. That's pretty cool. But here's what I really wanted to show you. Kenner and the Building of an Empire. This was awesome. I don't know if any other museum's going to get this, but this is an exhibit on the original Star Wars toys, and you're about to see all the original figures, so that's pretty exciting. But you can pause this and read it. It tells the history of Star Wars. This gives the history of Kenner. There's a Kenner Street here. It's actually right next to the museum center. As I've told on podcasts, my mom dated a guy from Kenner, and she got to see The Empire Strikes Back early, before all you people, so that's the one cool old Star Wars story I do have. And here's a nice quick gallery of old Kenner toys from when toys kind of sucked. So let's go on to Star Wars. So this tells about the original production of Star Wars toys when they finally hit shelves in 1978. There's one of those little insert booklets that came with like an X-Wing or whatever. That's pretty cool. I had the 90s equivalent. I still have those. I really, really loved them. But you can pause this and read it. It tells about the ships that came out and the final 8 of the first 12 figures. Now let's check out one thing that only Star Wars has done and no other brand could, the early bird certificate. So basically, you would go to the store, you would buy a box, you would fill out the certificate, and within 4 to 6 months, you would get a Luke Skywalker, R2-D2, Princess Leia, and Chewbacca action figure. Pretty good mix. I'm surprised they didn't put any bad guys in there, but whatever. There's the figures, and here are all the figures. Now, I was never a vintage collector, but seeing these in person really made me love them. I believe there's, 96, 94 figures. All of them were here and represented. You can see them again up close. There's Han Solo in Bespin gear. My favorite costume of all the Star Wars films. I actually have that figure. It's in shitty condition, but it's in my car. He's my co-pilot. There we go again. There's Han Solo, the large head version. I have that on my shelf. I love me some Han Solo. I have almost every toy ever made. Here's that early bird certificate. Actual thing. And here's a set of the original 12 on a display stand with the small-headed Han Solo. Very cool. Like I said, in person, these are so much better than on the internet. There's the early bird certificate. That's what you would get in the mail in 1978. I'm surprised that somebody has almost over a 40-year-old toy in the box. This is about the licensing of Star Wars. It just basically says that other companies didn't want it. They were more interested in licensing from television series, multi-season deals. You can pause this and read the entire thing right here. There is an image. That is my favorite Star Wars poster of all time. When I talk about the Star Wars posters in my office, I'm looking at it right now as I record this. I love that poster. It is epic. It basically is everything about the first film in one image. Here we go. The 12-inch figures, or the big action figures as they're called: Luke, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, Darth Vader, C-3PO, R2-D2, Han Solo, Obi-Wan with a yellow lightsaber, a Stormtrooper, a Jawa, Boba Fett, and IG-88. Let's take a closer look at Han, my favorite character. That lightsaber's really thrown me off. Now, here's the one thing that I was so jealous that the kids in the 70s got that I never got growing up in the 90s. Play sets. There's the Sandcrawler, pretty cool. If I was a kid, I would have never asked for it, because fuck the Jawas. But the Death Star playset, to this day, has never been topped. There has never been a cooler Star Wars playset. I would argue there's never been a cooler 3 3/4-inch action figure playset. What was it? 4 floors, or 3 floors of just awesome play action. And here's a prototype of a Star Wars playset. Here are some of the ships. We have a Cloud Car, an X-Wing, Slave One, a TIE Fighter, and the Millennium Falcon. This was talking about the Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi toy lines. I personally feel that the quality improved in the sculpts. I'm not necessarily a fan of some of the character choices, but then again, that's reflective of the film itself and not Kenner. But, whatever. The AT-AT Walker is cool. I thought it was neat that they put the micro collection figures next to it to show a true scale. Here's the Ewok Village. We got all the characters. Underneath, they had a Scout Trooper and a net, which was neat. I think this was reused for a Robin Hood playset. There's good old Han Solo. They had 4 of those Han Solo figures. This is about the Ewok toy line. You can pause it and read it. I mean, Star Wars did die out pretty quick. I mean, I know people think Star Wars was popular since 77, but no, that's really not how it went. It did die out from about 85 to 94. Here's the micro collection toys. There's an Ewok phone. Who wants to answer that call? And the Power of the Force 2 line, which is what I grew up with. I'm very nostalgic for. Not the greatest toys ever made, but that's what Star Wars was to me as a kid, and I get very excited seeing them. So, that was it. Here I am leaving. There's beautiful Cincinnati, and that's it. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, we will do more. Thanks to our patrons who made this possible. And if we get more, we'll do stuff like this in the future. So share this video, give it a thumbs up, tell me what you thought of the exhibit. If it comes to your town, are you going to go see it? Here in Cincinnati, it's available till October the 1st. So if you're local, if you live as far as Indianapolis or Louisville, I suggest you come up and see it for a day. $25, great deal. There's a lot of cool stuff to do in the city around it. So it's a must for Star Wars fans. And there's a big history of Star Wars here in Cincinnati. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more in the future.